Welcome, everyone. I am Susan Brady. Thank you for joining me today. So, I have a question for you today. Antibiotics or the weed killer known as Roundup, which do you think is more damaging to your gut? Now, you know that your gut houses trillions of microorganisms, and these microorganisms live symbiotically with us. And most of these bacteria are beneficial to our health because they can help with digestion and vitamin production, regulation of the immune system, inflammation. However, we also have opportunistic or bad bacteria that live in our gut. And if they start to overgrow and overpopulate the gut, this can lead to something called dysbiosis, which can lead to inflammation and all sorts of disease conditions. And as long as we nourish and support these beneficial bacteria in our gut, they're going to grow in abundance and they're going to crowd out or prevent the overgrowth of opportunistic bacteria. But if the beneficial bacteria are compromised and killed off, then the opportunistic organisms are going to start to overgrow and start to take over. And that's when we start to see these gut related diseases. So, going back to my question, which do you think is more likely to impact your gut bacteria? Antibiotics or consuming foods that have been sprayed with the weed killer known as Roundup? So, you might be surprised to learn that even though antibiotics definitely can have a negative effect on your gut microbiota, Roundup can actually be more damaging. And here's why. So, antibiotics kill off everything, they kill off all bacteria. And when you take an antibiotic, which can certainly be necessary from time to time when you have an infection, the antibiotics not only act on the bacteria that's causing the infection, but also the bacteria in the microbiome, both the beneficial bacteria as well as the opportunistic bacteria. So, antibiotics don't discriminate and kill both the good and the bad off equally. However, Roundup works a little differently. So, the main ingredient in Roundup is a chemical called glyphosate. And when glyphosate was originally patented by Monsanto, it was patented as an herbicide, but then it was also found to have antimicrobial properties, and Monsanto was then awarded a patent for glyphosate as an antibiotic. And the antibiotic properties of glyphosate are one of the ways that it kills off the weeds and then unwanted plants when you're farming. However, what the research is showing is that glyphosate is very selective in the bacteria that it kills. And it appears to selectively kill many of our beneficial bacteria, like bifidobacterium and lactobacilli, which are both very important bacteria for plant health as well as human health. So, unlike an antibiotic, which kills off everything, glyphosate kills off the good bacteria, but allows the opportunistic bacteria to grow and to thrive. So, why is this important? It's important because tons of glyphosate based herbicides are sprayed on America's food supply every year. And not only do the plants that we directly eat have glyphosates in them, but also the crops that our livestock eats. And glyphosate accumulates in the flesh of chickens and pigs and cows that we then eat. And we know that glyphosate exposure affects the gut microbiota in animals, and there's also growing research that suggests that when we consume plant and animal products, that have been sprayed with glyphosate, it can also disrupt our human microbiota, which in turn influences our health. So, really avoiding foods that have been sprayed with glyphosates or animals that have eaten foods sprayed with glyphosates is kind of important. So, the one thing that you can start to do is you can start to look for labels, okay? We're starting to see glyphosate free labeling now on some of our products, but this labeling is not fully rolled out yet. So, other ways you can see if the foods that you're eating might have glyphosates is, look for the USDA organic label as well as the non GMO verified label. And if you see any of these labels, that will be indicative that the food that you're consuming has been grown without glyphosates in it. And you really just need to try and eat organically as much as possible. And if you can't, try to avoid foods that are most heavily sprayed with glyphosates. Soy, wheat, rice, corn are all known for being sprayed with glyphosates, but also other foods that may be less assuming, like apples, almonds, apricots, asparagus, cherries, dates. All of these foods tend to have higher levels of glyphosates. And then you really need to avoid canola oil, which is genetically engineered oil, and it's genetically engineered to be resistant to glyphosates, which means they can spray even more of this herbicide on it. And I know that canola oil has been pressed to be heart healthy, but it's really not an oil that we should be consuming. We've known for a while the damaging effects of antibiotics on the gut microbiota, but if you have to take an antibiotic, it's generally only for a short period of time, and then eating probiotics and prebiotics rich foods or taking a probiotic supplement can certainly help to restore the health of the gut microbiome once you've stopped the antibiotic. However, if you're not careful about what you eat, you can be exposed to glyphosates on a daily basis. And this can cause an ongoing, unrelenting disruption of your gut microbiome, which can be very hard to overcome even if you're eating pre and probiotic rich foods or taking a supplement. And the research is just very clear that the gut microbiota is crucial to your health. It affects everything from your digestive health to your brain health to your heart health to controlling blood sugars, your immune system, inflammation, and it absolutely plays a critical role in the health of your bones. Those microbes in your gut help to regulate bone metabolism, bone mineral absorption, and the immune system, which then can affect the health and the strength of your bones. And if you want to take a deeper dive into all the ways the gut and your digestion affect the health of your bones, please check out my free webinar, Is Your Gut Holding Your Bones Hostage? It's about 35 minutes long, and you can find it at gutboneconnection.com. Thank you for joining me. I hope you have a healthy day, a wonderful day, and a gut healthy week. And I look forward to connecting with you next time.